I'm not gonna hold any of you. If you notice that the last video I made cut off abruptly, that's because right when the video ended, he was like done talking. He's probably gonna get into like an ad or something. I ran out of storage space because my videos are being saved onto my internal drive, not my hard drive that I'm using. So I ran out of space, but at least it only happened after I was done finishing the video. I should be good right now. It says I'm recording. And I didn't really know what to watch. I'm not gonna lie. So I was like, fuck it. Let's get another religion video in. Here we got the arguments for God's existence tier list from Genetically Modified Skeptic. This is a first, by the way. This is the inaugural video here from this man on the channel. I believe this man is an atheist. I don't put labels on myself or what I am. Don't really feel like it. We're just gonna go and see what he has to say on arguments for God's existence tier list. Let me know what you guys think as well. Leave a comment down below after you finish watching the video. What is your tier list? I'd love to hear from you guys, see what you guys think about this, and let's go.
So, you're trying to convince someone that God exists. You're probably overwhelmed with the amount of information and approaches other theists recommend. You need a starting point. As an atheist myself, I've become pretty familiar with the popular arguments for God's existence, both because my theist viewers send them to me literally every day in comments and emails, all that.
They usually
thanks, guys. And because it's important to me to seek truth.
They usually do that because, when I noticed this, right, because I've had arguments with my coworker, wherein, he'll try to prove the Bible, the truthness, I guess I should say, right? Like, the validity, the truth. He'll try to prove what the Bible is saying with the Bible, right? Like I'm saying, okay, so you know the stories, you know what it says. Okay, that's cool. I don't doubt that you've read it or whatever, and that you know what it says. I'm just saying, how do you know any of this is true? How could you prove to me that any of this has any sort of validity? How can you prove to me that this is what's real? How could you prove to me that this is in any way, shape, or form something that is supposed to be taken as something that's real, right? When I almost find that kind of foolish. It just seems it seems like you'd scratch your head about it if somebody really came up to you and if they told you this and you didn't know. If you were just a complete third party spectator in this whole religion, non-religion shtick, and you were mainly just you were told, okay, we have a system now called science where we want to understand our own ignorance, we identify it, and we absolutely accept the fact that we are ignorant, and therefore we must understand that we are ignorant, and we must fight against it, right? We must understand and go about our life knowing that anything that we know, it could at any moment in time be proven wrong, right? We can't just simply stick by what we already believe just because it's easier and we wouldn't waste up as much cognitive resources. We want to know the objective truth, right? And the system that we have to try and find that objective truth is science. So if you told somebody that and they're like, okay, so is what you're trying to find out is what's true, and you told them hey, look at these two guys are having an argument and they're trying to figure out what's true. Here we have the theist, here we have the atheist, whatever. Here we have this Christian guy trying to prove okay, what he believes in is what's correct or whatever. Well, this third party observer, right? You tell them this. He would probably kind of be taken aback, I feel. Right? That's how I feel sometimes. It's just I kind of see all of this and I'm why is this even a question? People actually consider this? I live in a world where these people who are just like me, I have the same brains as all of you, and I'm supposed to be thinking just like all of you. I'm supposed to be conscious and self-aware just like all of you. I mean, we live in a world where we have all of human knowledge and history and everything that we ever could possibly want to know right here at the palm of my hands. And it's well, with all of that information, technology is only really just kind of become an echo chamber for a lot of people where they'll feed themselves with the type of information and beliefs and values and shit that they already believed, and they'll just be reinforced. You won't get anything else because of algorithms. But it's also I just think that they would find it absolutely foolish that this man, like this person over here, is trying to be objective as possible and be like, okay, well, prove to me that it's real. Show me any scientific process that could prove this. Then there's also there's actually a law for something that actually can't be unproven, because like something is much easier to prove than it is to be misproven, right? It's a law. It's an actual law. And there's a bunch of laws for human behavior, and it's like, well, they'll bring all of that up, and then they'll be like, okay, here's a scientific process. We've studied this. We know that humans, they want to belong to a higher, they want purpose. We have a sort of an existential like need and longing for an intrinsic purpose, right? Like we have an existential longing, anxiety, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and we done studies on this, blah blah blah. Therefore, we cannot prove that such a story could be true, and we shouldn't say that just because we can't prove it to be untrue, that it must be true, or that we can't prove it to be true for it to be untrue. But it's also like, technically, you could say it's untrue, though, couldn't you? Like, you don't. Maybe I messed up on that. Like, can't you just say, okay, I can't prove it to be true? Why not? Like, I don't know, man. I give up. I don't fucking. I just think it's foolish. Like,
studying arguments.
It just seems so absurd to me, man.
That's
it hurts
why
my
I decided
head
to
sometimes.
create a guide that will illustrate and rank the power of each of the more popular
Like,
arguments.
this is a
for God.
conversation we're still having.
Although I've found all arguments for God I've encountered so far to be logically or evidentially problematic in some way, I do see some arguments as better than others.
It's almost like the way I see it. I'm not gonna pause it ever again. I see it as like flat Earth theory. If your life depended on flat Earth, if we said, you do realize if in the Bible it said the Earth was flat, people would 100% believe that, right? Even despite what science has said. What's good is the Bible was vague. What's good is the Bible is vague, and it sort of does well to cover up its own shit. But it's also like, imagine if that was in there. People would 100% be like, no, your science is false because my Bible says, and I'm using the Bible to prove the Bible, and you cannot do that. You cannot use the Bible to prove the Bible. Any religious text. You cannot use the text to prove the text. Otherwise, you have to admit that you're just being ignorant, and you have willful or blissful ignorance, whatever you want to call it, right? But you're not looking for truth at that point, and if you're not looking for truth, well, then go the fuck ahead. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I can't judge you there, right? Like, if you're not looking for truth, and you're just looking for something that's nice and fun to believe because of like Pascal's wager, which he's gonna mention it, go ahead, but like, you're not looking for truth. Like, it's like the flat Earth theory. If your life depended on it, if it said, well, you must believe in flat Earth, otherwise, you're going to hell. And then if you do, you can come up to me in heaven, into this perfect place, palace, kingdom, whatever, for eternal greatness, or you go there and suffer eternally. It's like, motherfuckers would believe that the Earth is flat. Like, that's just the kind of fucking people that I live amongst. It's just like.
Here, I'll rank popular arguments by their stats in 4 areas. 1,
100%.
intuitiveness, the ease at which the mind comprehends or even instinctively believes the concepts at play. 2, fallacy aversion, the extent to which an argument avoids utilizing logical fallacies and or hides them well within its premises. 3, communicability, the ease at which the argument is communicated to others and or its ability to capture attention when communicated. Finally, 4, refutation resistance, the extent to which an argument presents a challenge to refute, whether by means of complexity, emotiveness, or high-level rhetoric. I'll briefly cover 6 arguments, 1 in each tier. For those unfamiliar with this tier system, F tier is least powerful, while S tier is most. There's obviously a lot of subjectivity at play here, so feel free to create and explain your own ranking in the comments. In F tier, we have quite possibly the most popular argument on this list, at least when it comes to my comment section, Pascal's wager. The argument goes, if someone believes in God and God doesn't exist, a person suffers only a finite loss in death. But if he does exist, they enjoy an infinite gain in heaven. Meanwhile, if a person does not believe in God or act as if God exists, they stand to gain finite luxuries on earth, but stand to suffer infinitely in hell. Therefore, a rational person would seek to believe in God and live as if he exists. This is commonly put as a theist proclaiming to an atheist, if I'm wrong, I lose nothing, but if you're wrong, you lose everything. This argument commits a black and white fallacy, asserting that only two alternative states exist as possible.
And it's also like, I don't care, man. I'd want to know the truth. I always tell this to people. If it was for some fucking reason, like with what I know, it's pretty obvious, right? With what I know, it's pretty obvious to me. No way, right? It seems foolish to even consider. But it was like, if I'm going to entertain the idea and say, okay, maybe there is a heaven or a hell, right? If I have to be sent there for being me, for this man not giving me enough, like, reason to believe, for this man leaving a Bible wherein the whole thing is just based on faith and faith alone, not any sort of, like, truth or anything like that, or like, it doesn't deal with the realm of truth at this point. It's just something completely different. It's just about faith and believing in something. But it's just like, can I really just ignore the whole truth aspect? Like, can I really, like, it's just like, I have to be ignorant. Like, I have to be. And with knowing that I know what I know and being, like, having the sort of the scientific outlook that I have, I'd have to be ignorant to believe. Sorry, excuse me. So it's just like, well, if I'm going to be sent to hell just because I didn't believe, or whatever, right? Well, then so be it. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I can't do anything about it, bro. Like, I can't be asked. I'm not just gonna do it just to save my own ass. Like, I might as well. Like, also, I don't think that works like that. Like, wouldn't God just know that you're just doing that just to save your own ass, right? Like Pascal's wager. Like, well, I mean, at least I might as well believe, because, well, I want to save my own ass. I wouldn't want that happening. Shit, I might as well play it safe. Fuck playing it safe. What the fuck is you talking about? What are you talking about, man? What are we even talking about? Like, if I were to be sent down there, so be it. Because I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a good person. I go about my day with ethics and morals. And, well, I'm trying to do the best that I can, right? With the information that I can, making the choices that I can, being a human, making mistakes, just like everybody else, learning from them. Ain't nobody perfect. Oh, shit.
Abilities, while other possibilities, in fact,
My
exist.
God,
This
how have I
argument can
talked
be
so
easily
much?
destroyed by pointing out that multiple mutually exclusive religions could use this argument, thereby making its nature absurd. This argument is remarkably communicable. Its simplicity, ease of comprehension, and emotiveness have literally seen it turned into a bumper sticker. That simplicity is its downfall, however, as its fallacies are so blatant and its refutation resistance is so low that it can be and has been refuted by the likes of Homer Simpson.
And what if we pick the wrong religion? Every week we're just making God madder and madder.
Testify!
With no special
If I
abilities
saw somebody
and
with that
wildly
bumper sticker,
unbalanced
my God.
stats, Pascal's wager lands squarely in F tier despite its popularity. In D tier, we have the ontological argument. There are several forms of this, so I'll address its first and some ontological argument. It goes like this. God is the greatest possible being that can be imagined. God exists as an idea in the mind. A being that exists both in reality and the mind is greater than one which only exists in the mind. If God only exists as a concept in our mind, then we can imagine something that is greater than God, a greatest possible being that does exist. We can't imagine something that is greater than the greatest possible being we can imagine, therefore God exists. Yeah, that one is a pretty wild ride, so in case you're confused, ontological arguments essentially boil down to saying
I'm most definitely
greatest
confused.
possible being exists somewhere, a necessary criteria for the highest possible greatness is existence, therefore a greatest possible being, God, exists. This argument commits the fallacy of begging the question, as its conclusion is already included within one of its premises. Its first premise says that a greatest possible being exists, and eventually concludes that a greatest possible being exists. It claims God exists after simply defining God as existent. The ontological argument relies upon its decent refutation resistance.
I'm not gonna hold you, I didn't get any of
It is
that.
complex, giving the impression that its
I didn't
refutation
get
would
any of
also
that.
need to be complex. It still does not hide its fallacies well, however, so it ultimately makes poor use of its confusability. Like Pascal's wager, this argument's strength is also its downfall. It's rather unintuitive, and its wordiness makes it difficult to communicate to others. Because of this, it's most often used in its syllogistic form by apologists. Given that its only decent stat and ability ultimately backfire, making it difficult to use, Anselm's ontological argument only makes it to D tier. On to C tier, where we find the
That's
Kalam
better than
Cosmological
Pascal's
Argument.
wager? That seems
This
worse
argument
than
is
Pascal's
very
wager.
popular among Christian and Muslim apologists, as well as many theists with a more cursory knowledge of apologetics. The Kalam states, whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. That's all of it. Other arguments are often used in conjunction with the Kalam in order to support the idea of a specific God, but still, the Kalam is well recognized as an argument for theism. Strangely enough, this supposed argument for God is not actually about any deity at all. Even if the entire argument was granted, it still wouldn't support.
Where are you drawing that from? What do you mean a cause? What is your definition of cause? What are you deriving that idea from? What is your presupposition? Like, what do you call it? The preface? Like, where are you drawing that idea from? Where you say everything has a cause, everything that exists has a cause, the universe exists, therefore the universe has a cause. Well, you're just making an assumption. Like, all of this is just assumptions. Like, you're like, I like what he's doing because he gives like the bar shits, the graphs for like the shits. I think it's a very good, very well made list. I think it's very good. Like, you can see he's right. Like, some of this shit is not communicable at all, and it has some fallacies, man.
Theism. Further,
I like the
even
framework
if granted,
that he
it
has.
wouldn't establish that the universe's cause was itself uncaused. The Kalam, if true, would only establish that the universe had a cause, but would say nothing at all about the nature of that cause. Proponents of this argument will often state that the Big Bang was the beginning of all space, time, and matter, and thus the beginning of causation. Therefore, the cause of the Big Bang must have been uncaused itself. This misunderstands the Big Bang, though. See, we don't exactly understand the Big Bang to be the beginning of all that is. It isn't the moment where something came from nothing, as some mistakenly assert. We've traced the expansion of the universe backward, and the Big Bang is simply the point where our understanding of the laws of physics no longer makes sense, and we can't trace back any further. So, yeah, the Kalam cosmological argument...
But it was at a singularity, single tiny point, very tiny. I'd say, although maybe I'm using the same framework that some of these other shits to try to prove God's existence might be, but it's like, look, I'd hope I'm not going off their logical framework, but I'd say, since there's only like two singularities that we know of, right? The Big Bang and a black hole. Singularity. Okay, is there a connection between those two? So you could argue there is. Why? Because they're the same thing. There's a singularity, right? There's a singularity. We only know that two exist, but we do know that there's another one. We do know that there's another type of singularity that happens elsewhere, right? It's just like, let's look there. Because I think that's where we'll find the answer. That's where we'll find our answer on what the fuck the Big Bang was. I think it's a black hole. I think this universe came out of a black hole. And black holes could possibly lead to other, I wouldn't say dimensions, but also maybe like other universes, you know? Like, it honestly makes more sense than the Big Bang. Like, it would honestly answer a lot about the Big Bang, but it wouldn't answer everything. Like, it wouldn't answer, okay, where was that black hole coming from? What universe did it belong to? And what did that one belong to? It's just like, look, we're a part of some crazy fucking system that we couldn't even begin to comprehend, okay?
fails to establish a first.
At some points, I realize I understand why people just want to believe in a god at this point. Like, it's just much easier. Trust me, you don't want to deal with trying to figure this shit out. It's not true that there is a man in the way that the Westerners think about it in a kingly sense, because, well, I mean, they're all deriving that from the time that it was created back then, when there was like feudalism and there was kings, and that's sort of the concept that they were deriving that from, right? Is like, well, look, there's kings and queens, and it's like, well, that's our worldview. Therefore, we're gonna make a story about that, and we're gonna make that like a story that people are gonna believe about, like the most fundamental things in the universe. But it's also like, well, now you have a being that's like kind of like he's just like a king, just like the kings that they had back then. And like you gotta bow to him, and you gotta like put yourself down and think and compare yourself to the people that were back then, and be like, wow, I'm nothing compared to this person. I'm so shitty. How could I sin? You gotta feel bad about yourself. You gotta put yourself down in comparison to this great almighty ideal person, whatever, right? Just like a kingly sense guy and a big throne, a beard, right? All of that good stuff. Just in a time where they needed something to believe in, and they were very oppressed a lot by I don't know if it was the Romans, was it? I think I read. And like, therefore, that's why the meek shall be blessed or whatever. That's why they support weakness, because, well, they saw their own. I don't know, man. I give up. My brain is not functioning. It's 11:30 p.m.
Cause, much less any.
I know what I'm talking
It
about,
is
though, but I
rather
can't
intuitive
like
and easy
fully
to
like
communicate,
go back
giving it
to
an
it.
edge over the ontological argument. It also has greater fallacy aversion and refutation resistance than Pascal's wager,
I'm
although
upset.
that's not really saying much. The Kalam's unique feature is its
I'm
ease
upset because it seems like I don't know what I'm talking about.
communication in
I
its
promise I
syllogistic
do.
form. It isn't confusing or wordy, but it still sounds smart. With low-level but not terrible stats or abilities, the Kalam Cosmological Argument lands in C tier.
Is your agency using WordPress to build websites?
WordPress?
That's like carving a chicken with a handsaw.
Oh, well, I mean,
Okay, now we're getting to
Whoa.
the arguments with some fight in them. In B tier, we have the argument most
Okay,
often
let's
used
see, we
to
have the
justify
decent
bigotry toward
arguments.
non-believers, the moral argument or argument from morality. There are
Bigotry.
several forms of this argument, but a common syllogistic form nowadays is this. If God does not exist, objective moral values don't exist. Objective moral values exist, therefore God exists. This argument's first
What's an
premise
objective
is
moral value?
unsubstantiated. It doesn't demonstrate that the only way objective moral values can exist is if God exists. This is simply a non sequitur. Some who use this argument may define objective moral values as moral values declared by God, but that would make the argument state its conclusion within its second premise. That would commit the fallacy of begging the question. The argument would be circular reasoning. God exists because God ordained moral values exist because God exists, and so on. Some other moral arguments, such as C.S. Lewis' argument in Mere Christianity, state that moral law has not been shown to have a natural origin, so it must have come from a supernatural moral lawgiver. First of all, this is an argument from ignorance. Not knowing does not excuse asserting an unsubstantiated answer.
That's
Second,
100% true. That's
evolution
the
by
biggest
natural
thing
selection
right there.
is actually a pretty good explanation for why social species would behave according to practices which
Yes.
promote fairness, peace, and well-being among groups. This
Makes a lot
argument
of
is
sense to
similarly
me.
intuitive, communicable, and fallacy-averse to the Kalam cosmological argument. What sets this
Intuition.
argument apart is its higher
Fallacy
refutation
aversion?
resistance
Dog
aided by
shit.
its special ability, denigrate. While not always fully taken advantage of, the denigrate ability is used when this argument's user asserts that non-theists lack morals because they lack a belief in a god. This, to many, makes non-theists
I'm sorry, just you can't throw that at me, man. You can't throw that at me. It's special ability for this theory. We're gonna hit you with a combo. We're gonna hit you with a power up, right? Oh, that wasn't good enough. We gotta fuck it. We gotta hit you with a special ability. I'll hit you with my tactical, my denigrate. The user asserts or implies that their opponent lacks morals. Their opponent. I love that.
appear untrustworthy
It's a
when they try to
resistance
debunk
buff.
the moral argument. After all, an amoral, godless liar probably would try to convince people that God doesn't dictate morality or doesn't even exist. That way, they can get away with all of their evil actions undisturbed. With mid-level stats and an occasionally effective special ability, the moral argument goes in B tier. I already know that my A and S tiers are going to be hotly contested, but I think my cases for these are pretty solid. In A tier, we have arguments from personal experience. I know, I'm sure plenty of you take issue with that, but please hear me out until the
I mean,
end.
like
Arguments
compared
for
to all
personal
of these, it
experience
makes
aren't
sense.
usually presented in syllogisms, but if they were, they'd probably go something like this. My personal experiences are reliable sources of information. I personally experienced, insert God claim here, therefore, the God claim is true. There are several issues with the first premise here. Personal experiences are not always reliable. One, personal experiences can contradict reality. There are hallucinations, manic states, meditative or trance states, psychoses, and more that can inform delusions. There's a wealth of scientific evidence that shows this to be true. Two, different people's personal experiences often contradict each other. Just ask all the Muslims, all the Christians, all the Hindus who have all had personal experiences in which a god confirms to them that following their specific religion is the only way. Three, and perhaps most importantly, a plethora of cognitive biases exist.
I'd love
which
to hear
influence
that.
perfectly sane.
I'd like if people dream that, that'd be awesome, you know? If I could lucid dream, no, if I could have like a vivid dream, I would honestly appreciate if I could have a dream. I couldn't tell you that I wouldn't be like freaked the fuck out, because that is freaky. You know, the dream will definitely fuck with you, and at that point, I don't even blame you. Because like, imagine you have a god, you're dreaming, and you don't know you're in a dream, and then a god comes down. He's like, "You chose the right path, Anakin. I have the high ground. I am the real god." And like, imagine he. Like, dude, you'd be set. Like, you would 100%, despite what anybody thinks, because of your subjective experience, and we all trust ourselves, right? We trust what we've seen. But it's just like, that'd be hard. I think even I would have a hard time coming out of that one being like, yo, that's freaky shit. Like, that's freaky as fuck.
Healthy and honest people to misinterpret their mundane, naturalistic experiences all the time. Two fallacies are very common among interpretations of personal experience. The first is thinking that one thing caused another just because they happened in sequence. This is drawing false correlation, or post hoc ergo propter hoc. The second is positing an unsubstantiated explanation for an occurrence just because you can't explain it otherwise. This is an argument from ignorance. So, with all these flaws in this argument, why do I put it in A tier? It has the absolute best intuitiveness and refutation-resistant states out of any argument for God. Human beings naturally trust their personal experience. It is, after all, the primary source we use to inform countless decisions on a day-to-day basis. This means that even well-educated, intelligent people often trust their personal experiences over more reliable sources like scientific data all the time. If someone has a gripping personal experience related to God, they're probably going to believe it regardless of who they are. Personal experience is also incredibly hard to refute, given that it isn't possible to place oneself within another person's experience in order to point out any definite logical fallacies being made. On top of that, augmenting its refutation resistance, this argument may have the strength.
As a buff, I knew it. Because then if you tell them they're wrong, they're gonna take that shit personally. They're gonna be like, "You motherfucking bitch! You fucking cocksucker! Hey, listen here, dickhead! You done crossed the line!" Right? They're gonna tell you, man, you don't cross the fucking line. You gonna tell me I'm a liar? You gonna tell me I didn't see what the fuck I saw? I know what I saw, right? And they're gonna hit you with that. They're gonna hit you with
special ability there is attaching to identity. See, if you attempt to argue with the interpretation of someone's personal experience, they often take it as a personal attack as they associate that personal experience with their very identity as a person.
Impenetrable personal defenses
go up, rendering any further debate entirely useless. This argument has low fallacy aversion, but because of how convincing it is given its other stats, that doesn't really matter. Its real weakness is its lack of communicability. Personal testimonies do sway some, but for the most part, those who value personal experience aren't strongly convinced of things from hearing about other people's experiences. Many theistic groups have learned to compensate for this weakness, however, in creating environments which are conducive for personal experiences with God. Think prayer and fasting sessions, physically intense rituals, communal worship, and group excursions.
My God,
if
I don't
you
want to know
still
what
doubt
that
that
is.
this argument belongs
Physically intense ritual? That does not sound fun at all.
in A tier, go ask a few theists why they believe, then ask them if they would still believe if the reason they gave was not at play. If they say they'd still believe, repeat those questions until they say no or refuse to go any further. This is a street epistemology technique for figuring out why people believe what they do. My bet is that you'll land on personal experience that way the majority of the time. With extremely high intuitiveness stats, an overpowered special ability, and solid strategy to compensate for its weaknesses, arguments from personal experience earn a solid spot in A tier. Finally, we're up to S tier, where only the most effective arguments belong. At this tier, I'm going to place the teleological argument, specifically the argument from fine-tuning. It goes like this.
I discovered the 8 immortal kings of Samaria lived a total of
Oh, fuck off.
241,200 years.
You did not discover
Cosmology
shit.
shows us that there are several physical constants that govern the universe as we know it. If any
Yes, but those could have honestly just been at random. I already know what this argument is gonna say. Like, you're gonna make a assumption, therefore your conclusion will say, well, because of this, well, this must mean this. Like, bro, I just watched a podcast with Bobby Azarian and Joe Rogan. Like, it could be a chance that the fine-tuning is like natural selection and there's multiple universes, and then this universe that spawned out of a black hole of another one, and there's like multiple of them, and there's like a black hole at the center of every galaxy, and then those lead to other universes, and it's like there's natural selection with this shit. So some of the best aspects of a universe may be picked out. And then in that sense, we have to realize, well, there's something going on there. But it's like, it's also not, it's not God. Why do you need to think that they're like, what is God in this situation? Like, what do you mean? What is God? How are you defining God? Like, anyway.
Any one of those were tweaked even the smallest bit, the universe as we know it would not exist. The constants as they stand form a proverbial Goldilocks zone for our existence. It's highly improbable that this would occur by chance without a fine-tuning creator, so it's more probable that a creator does exist and is responsible for this fine-tuning. While this seems to make sense at first, deeper inspection reveals this argument's simple flaws. First, it makes use of a false dichotomy, presenting pure chance and an intelligent creator as the only two possibilities when it hasn't successfully ruled out other options. There could perhaps be some purely physical rule to the universe which demands that these constants be the way they are. Second, this is an argument from ignorance. Because the arguer doesn't know how such an unlikely thing could have possibly happened, they posit an unsubstantiated explanation, a god, instead of saying, I don't know. This
That's the
argument
biggest
has high
one.
balanced stats. Its
Bro,
intuitiveness
like
is
that, what he
second
said
only-
right there is the definition of everybody who's religious. That is it. That's them just wrapped up in a bag, in a nice little bag. Instead of just saying you don't know, you're just gonna say, well, fuck it.
only to personal experience. Research within the field of cognitive psychology suggests that teleological thinking naturally occurs even in children. Humans naturally conclude that there is intent behind the function of just about everything, living, non-living, inanimate, or not.
Well, you
This
kind of
type
have to because of
argument is
survival
so
reasons,
intuitive
right?
that most cultures around the world have come up with some form of it independently. It's also very communicable, as it lends itself to colorful analogies like the watchmaker analogy, and it spawns stories that become religious dogma, aka creation myths. One of its special abilities results from its high communicability and decent refutation resistance. That ability is giving purpose. It gives its user a feeling of uniqueness, privilege status, or purpose.
There it is, divinity, the number one thing, which I actually don't have anything against, right? Like, you can choose to be religious or not. Like, religion, I do know, like, I don't have anything against it. Like, look, I can't tell you how to live. I can't tell you how you should be living. I can't tell you what to believe. If you choose to believe in it, well, then all power to you. But it's just like, there might be some problems that do arise at some point, right? Like, I wish there wasn't, but there might be. And I don't know if I can not say anything if there's going to be problems arising. Like, for example, you might not be able to get to the bottom. And this is from my coworker, right? He says that the guy that shot up those kids at the elementary school, like 18 kids died. It's horrible. Everybody knows about it. He said that guy was like possessed, right? And like for some reason, him just instantly thinking that he's possessed and that it's always like a devil or something like that. Like something about that like ticked me off because it seems like people like him really do exist, and I fear that sometimes because of that fucking stupid like assumption and conclusion that they reach, the real problem might not get addressed. Because he just says, oh, motherfucker was like possessed or something. Of course he knows he's crazy, but like, it it just pissed me off, bro. Like, we need to figure out how to stop this, and the motherfuckers are just gonna think that it's the devil's work. Oh, oh, oh. But other than that, I mean, it's fine. It stopped him from drinking. He found God. He found his purpose. People are happier when they have divinity, you know. But for some weird reason, even though I'm not very religious, um, I find divinity in knowing that I'm a part of the universe. I'm the universe looking at itself. I'm a part of something bigger than myself, and then science can prove that. Like, I don't think you need religion to feel divinity anymore, because divinity makes you feel happier. We love and we yearn to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. That's true. But you don't even need religion for that, because the truth is there is a higher purpose. And it's not any of the stories we told ourselves. It's actually greater than all of them. All of them. It's crazier than all of
The
them.
user thinks that they were designed intently by an intelligent creator. This makes challenging the argument difficult, as any challenges may trigger the user's personal defenses. Those challenges will appear to the user as attacks on their personal sense of purpose, as assertions of hopeless nihilism, or both. This argument also has the ability to retreat to gaps in the knowledge of any who would try to refute it. If a
She has two
teleological
buffs.
argument is used on the level of
He has
biology
two tacks,
and
bro. He hit him with the ultimate, bro. This shit has an ultimate ability. This shit has given purpose, and it has retreating to gaps. When challenged successfully, the user may continue to apply the argument, utilizing the gaps in their opponent's knowledge of other scientific fields. This ensures consistent effectiveness across a variety of opponents.
is invoked to refute it, it may retreat to the level of chemistry, then physics, then cosmology as a whole, always avoiding direct refutation. As long as there's something about the existence of the universe that we don't know, this argument will rest safely in that ignorance. Even when this argument has been debunked, it won't appear so to many. The refutation of this argument demands that its opponent admit ignorance, which can appear to some on the argument's side as an admission of defeat. Given its high intuitiveness, its ability to turn its fallacy into a cheap victory to some, its incredible communicability, and its refutation-resisting ability of turning any challenge into an attack on its user's existential security, the teleological argument belongs in S tier. So, if you're intent on convincing someone that God exists, hopefully you now better understand some of the tools at your disposal. Although, if you're like me and feel that the more you've come to understand about apologetics, the less comfortable you are actually using them, then at least consider, for a moment, getting out of this game altogether. Now, I'm really curious to know what you guys think. Would you rank these differently? For you, has this been a fun way to explore apologetics like it's been for me?
Apologetics? Wait,
Do you hate
what?
me for being some kind of Tier Zoo offshoot?
Tier Zoo offshoot? No, I like that. I think it was a good video. Let me know what you guys think. But, I mean, let me just read some comments real quick. If God doesn't exist, then why is the game called God of War and not the Science of War? As a Christian, I saw a great counterpoint to Pascal's wager. Ricky Gervais said, well, why don't you put garlic over your door then, just in case Dracula exists? I like how even some Christians, though, they'll see the stupidity in Pascal's wager. I like how he's describing each argument like they're video game characters with different stats and special attacks. I know. I like how in this video explaining anyway, it's pro-religion. There are multiple kinds of people in the comments giving their opinion, trying to understand and respect each other. At least from what I've seen, I know this special case is personally Christian, but always eager to broaden my knowledge and see how other people think. To make God tier, I'm Christian. Honestly, I do enjoy your content now. You're definitely right about personal experience being a factor. Why I believe in God so much. That being said, I completely understand why people don't believe in it. You can believe what you want as long as you aren't harming anyone. See, I like people like that, right? People that don't like Packle's wager. What if hell exists to which every theist goes, and a heaven exists to which every atheist goes? You better be an atheist now. Well, I mean, nobody makes an argument for that because we don't need to. We don't want to. Yeah, I mean, basically, I don't know. I don't like to label myself. In a sense, I don't. I do. Can't even talk anymore. I'll watch these videos, but in a sense, I almost don't want to like get too into it, you know, because then it's just like I'm gonna offend too many people. Like this is like another one of those politics things, right? Like religion is like politics now. It's like you talk about it, you give your opinion, or you say something. It's gonna be like, you're gonna have hell break loose. No pun intended. But it's like, I don't have anything else to say. I don't want to let it get to 40 minutes, man. It's a 17-minute video. I'll see you guys in the next one, man. Let me know what you guys think. I don't know, man. Alan Watts just says it the best, man. It's just like that ceramic worldview, it ain't gonna work for me. It just isn't doing it for me. It's so primal. It's so of the time that Christianity came about. Like, you were literally ruled by kings, by tyrants. God, in a sense, is kind of like a tyrant. Like, you can see the things that they used to create the story, like the things that they drew from. You know, they're drawing from that time period of kings and queens. It's just like how all they're used to is following something. All they're used all that they're used to is a king. And it's just like, oh my god. And you feel sorry for yourself when it comes from a time where people needed to find meaning because they were going through a lot of shit. Which, for that sense, oh, well, all power to you. What am I going to say? Like, definitely. But then at this point, what's the point of it still existing? Like, it's not necessary anymore. I have no idea where it's... I don't have no idea where it's going to go. I have no idea. No idea. Because it's also like, it's completely managed to become a different thing where it evades truthness. Like, it evades a truthness, like, factor. Like, it's not about being true or untrue, like I said before. It's just about something entirely different at this point. Like, it doesn't dwell with truth. It doesn't care about truth. It's just belief, right? And it's a faith. It's like something else entirely that this is supposed to not involve truth. Yet, I mean, you ask people and they'll tell you they completely believe in it and they believe it to be true. The truest thing there is. And it's like, okay, well then you'd be ignorant. Because if I asked you why, you'd likely just say because the Bible says so. And then you'd be using the Bible to argue the Bible's validity. And you can't do that. So it's like, well. Anyway, man, catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully I didn't, seem like a fool in there. I mean, I was just really tired. But yeah, see you guys in the next one, man. Leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Yeah.